December 21st meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board. This meeting is being recorded and streamed on YouTube. Our first items of business should be easily taken care of, and that is the approval of minutes for two of our previous meetings. The minutes were sent out originally for October 19th, 2021. I will move their adoption. Is there a second? Seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. The minutes of the November 16th, 2021 meeting were sent out this past weekend, and I will move their adoption. Is there a second? Seconded by Bill. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving them, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. The minutes are approved. Thank you. We have a number of applicants here, and if there is no objection from the board members, we will take their applications out of order in order to expedite their departure from the scene. And in that regard, perhaps we'll take what should be the shortest one to deal with, and that is 28 Shepherd Street, Queog. And that involves a proposed renovation of a 1890 dwelling, which was itemized as a historic resource in the AKRF survey of 2014.
Yes.
Stephanie or Bill, did you handle it?
Yes, I sent in a report for that.
Yeah, let me see if I can
Okay.
get all my files pulled together here. Let's see. I have the application, but I don't see. Do you have the report on your computer that you can share?
Yes. Okay, how do I go about sharing it?
Do you see at the bottom share screen?
Mm-hmm.
The green button?
Okay.
You need to bring it up on your screen first and then share.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll see your whole desktop.
Okay, so I've opened it. Then when I go to share screen, it's not there.
No, when you hit the share screen, it'll ask you which screen you want to share, and you'll choose that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Screen 2.
Share.
Okay.
That was now we just select. Now you could just select the. This is what I was trying to avoid, but you can just select what you want now.
Oh, okay. I already have it open. Okay, I'm not sure how to do that.
So just close your screen.
Okay.
Close the share.
Mm-hmm.
And try it again. When you hit the share button, it's going to ask you which screen you want to share. So then you choose the one that you have opened.
Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay.
That's close
Okay.
enough.
So as Ed said, this is in the AKRF. There's half a dozen or more other historic resources right in this area. It's also listed in the Quiog Hamlet Heritage Resource Area report. It was property owned by Silas Tuttle, and in 1895 he sold it to Shepherd Homan, who within a year had opened a golf course, a 9-hole golf course there. The golf course existed until 1902 when they played their last game. So somewhere between 1896 and 1902, I guess the house was built. So I'm not quite sure where there must have been somewhere on the golf course that he was able to take a portion of the property and build the house. So I'm a little confused with the dates on that. The house is in great condition. The project is a construction application. The house is very intact, the original house, except for the front porch. A portion of it has been enclosed. It's sort of a porch that starts as an octagon on the left side of the house, runs across the porch and then back a little ways. So the octagon and the portion that's returning back on the right-hand side have been enclosed. Unfortunately, the windows in the octagonal part are jalousie windows and things, but the applicant is proposing to replace those with double hung windows that would be more suitable to the house. The nicest thing would be to, of course, create an open porch again, but being that it's been enclosed for quite some time and they'd like to have the space, I didn't really object to that being enclosed. The roof line and the footprint of it are all still very much intact.
Bill, could you scroll to the pictures that as you're referring to them? There we go.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Here's the golf course. It unfortunately didn't transfer well into my report. So I'm going to see if I can get a better one before I send this out as the final report. But definitely in the 1902 map, you can see the house. And in the 1916 map, you can see the house. So in 1902, when this map was done, the golf course is already gone. So, okay, so this is the AKRF photo, and except for the color of the house, it's very much the same. So here's the house as it exists now. Most of the windows are a diamond light cut in the top sash and a single pane of glass in the bottom sash. It's difficult because of the foliage here to see the octagonal part that's been enclosed, but you can see some of the windows sort of left of center there, left of the front door. Here it is again, hidden behind the bushes. That area is finished with picture windows and jalousie windows. So those will be taken out and replaced with double hungs. I did discuss with the owner, possibly doing them with the diamond light cuts. At the moment, because of the expense, he's going to do them as 1/1s. We did discuss ways in the future of popping out those sashes, replacing them with diamond lights. I also discussed with the owner, and he had some interest in landmarking the house and using the maintenance award fund and the CPF facade easement in order to finance doing some of the things like the window replacements. And here's the carport on the right-hand side, and just behind the little bush, you can see some French doors there. That portion again was enclosed at a later date. I was hoping that perhaps as a recommendation, I said to replace the French doors with a door that was more a single door with diamond light side lights, more like the front door, something more in keeping with the design of the house. Yeah, here you can see the octagon. The center window is a picture. The two on the angle are the jalousie windows. Little bay tower that goes up. The
Can you maximize your screen? Or will that mess you up? If you maximize, there we go.
That better? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. This is the rear of the house. There is a porch here as well on the side. I believe that this one-story section was a later addition. The windows, although they have the diamond cuts in them, are a later window, perhaps an Anderson or something with a snap-in grill. You can see on the second floor, some of the windows don't have the diamond lights. There's a pair of casements in one of the bathrooms. But all in all, from the front, the house is very much intact other than the porch. The addition was on the rear, so it's hard to see. There's the porch. The sort of reddish siding further in is the front door with its flanking windows. So I was just hoping that the area with the French doors to the right here and the picture window around the corner, which is to be removed, if the door is something a little more traditional were done there, being that it is facing the street. That portion of the house on the side that's enclosed has the casement windows. They're to be removed and replaced with double hungs, again, more suitable to the style of the house. Okay, here's the porch. So you can see the jalousie windows in here. So all of those will be replaced with double hung windows. I believe also that the columns are to be removed. And I was wondering if they couldn't be left, again, just so that you could sort of picture all of the columns running across the porch and into this enclosed area, you would understand that it was an enclosed porch and see some of the original details. Yep, there's the front door with the flanking diamond windows. Some interesting things in the house. There's one of the windows, original windows, sash weights with rope cords, single divided lights, a little close up of it. Unfortunately, the stairs has been covered with carpet. There is some paneling on one of the walls in one of the rooms. There is a narrow sort of winding back stairs. Again, someone's covered it in carpet. Some small diamond windows, had some sashes added inside to make them, I guess, a little more energy efficient. The floors were interesting. They had a very wide border running around the room, which was typically diagonal to the walls that it was sort of paralleling. As you can see, they're pretty worn. The owner's hoping to, see what he can do with them, and if he can't repair them, perhaps replace them. The fireplace, somebody unfortunately updated. So at some point that'll be taken out and redone. But again, we're on the inside now. Yep, this is one of the windows towards the back. Definitely not the same single glazed windows as in the front. This is the enclosed porch on the side. And that picture window will be taken out. The French doors I was hoping would be changed to something more traditional. And the little casement windows to the left are already planned to be, here, these windows, planned to be converted to double hung windows. There's some interesting flaring going on here on the ground level, as well as some on the second floor. There was a tambour door sort of between a little pantry and that front area. They plan on keeping that. Interesting, there was a window. This is the stairwell, and there was a window, an interior window in that stairwell. Here's the other side of it in a closet. Just kind of an odd detail. Definitely an interior window. The sill was flat. Doesn't look like it was ever an exterior window. Bathrooms are all outdated, so everything there will be updated. The homeowner spoke about perhaps saving this tub, but not saving the mint green tile in the master bath. Kitchen will be completely redone. The radiators are coming out, will be replaced with a more modern heating and air conditioning system. There was a window seat in the second floor of the bay. Interesting, this was a very early jam switch to turn on the light in a closet. Some of the sash weights in the windows. They had a fairly decorative panel to the scuttle for the attic, which you don't typically see. Typically, it's just a piece of plywood or sheetrock in the hole. It was interesting that they went around it with trim and did a 4-panel door in it. When you're in the attic, you can see where the lath is. The wood roofing has been removed. Everything has been replaced with plywood and asphalt shingles. All in all, the house is in good condition. A lot of corbelling done to the chimney, and the little box to the right appears like it would have been sort of a water storage tank in the attic. More of the framing. Most of the foundation is brick. There's basement under a portion of it, but a lot of it, here we go, a lot of it is crawl space. All of the mechanical equipment has been updated. The basement stairs. The sort of rough sawn framing, diagonal subflooring, all leading again to an early 1900s date for the construction. A locust post. This was interesting. This is a dawn redwood. The only reason I know is because it said it on the tree. A lot of the trees are odd specimens, and they are all labeled with what they are. And this one mentions that it's from China, Asia Minor. All of the trees have these tags on it, all very trees that are established. They're not young. They've been there a long time, but a lot of the property was covered with these trees, all with the tags on them. That alone is just something special for the property. Garage is circa 1950. Nothing is planned for that at the moment. Interesting, the roof framing was a tongue and groove sheathing, but the side walls had lath on them with the wood shingles applied to the lath. I found that sort of an odd thing. Typically the lath is on the roof, sheathing on the side walls, and this building is the opposite. The project is fairly straightforward. Window and door replacements, mostly interior renovation. I had no objection to the work. I did make a couple of recommendations about the French doors on the front, doing something perhaps a little more traditional, and again, trying to maintain the diamond lights where possible. And again, the owner was interested in landmarking, and hopefully will continue to be, and hopefully we can get them interested in landmarking it and get them to use the maintenance award and the CPF easement, facade easement, to get the details that the house deserves.
The report, Bill, is excellent in terms of its documentation. As usual, I think we all applaud that and become better informed from all the work that you do.
Thank you.
So are there other comments and questions from any of the other Landmarks board members present? I think you can probably stop sharing your screen by, there we go. Very good, thanks. So now you have a new skill.
Yes.
And we will use that in the future.
Okay.
And since you've mastered it, everybody else will have to master it as well for their own reports. So very good. Okay, any other thoughts on the matter?
I think I'd just like to make, a couple comments on this. This house does seem to have a lot of intact historic fabric. It's identified as a historic resource, and I think it's something that at least I would see us entertaining a landmarking application for, with possibility of easement and maintenance grant, et cetera. I think one of the important aspects of this is to maintain, if possible, the existing diamond pane windows, the diamond pane over the single light windows. They are a very distinctive feature of the facade of this house. And I don't know if consideration has been given to storm windows for these in lieu of replacing them, and in particular replacing them with 1/1s, which I think would significantly detract from the historic, vista of the house.
Right, on the front porch.
If I may speak as the owner for a moment.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's protocol or not.
It's fine.
But we are looking not to do the 1/1 in the front, but to do, I believe they're called Queen Anne, but that's not my expertise. But a Queen Anne light over one in the front of the house. Unfortunately, for reasons that I, as a average homeowner, don't understand, the diamond lights, even 1/1, are prohibitively expensive to add as an option. Even 6/1 is like a fraction of the cost of a diamond over one. So that is our initial intention. We would love to have the diamond over. It's just prohibitive at the moment.
Have you given thought to maintaining the existing diamond light windows and adding your insulation, et cetera, by the use of storm windows?
So I think both for consistency on the other, my understanding is it's the windows in the front that matter the most in this discussion.
Yes.
So consistency in the house, and also having to satisfy the HERS requirement of efficiency of the house, that even storm windows were not going to be sufficient. And they're, a lot of them, I think Bill saw, some of them are they're just rotting in terrible shape. I mean, even the diamond lights themselves, because they're so some of the windows are so old that the diamond lights are just falling apart. There was one picture, Bill, you had in that paneled room of the 3 windows at top that were, those windows are, I'm afraid if I push on them, they'll just fall apart. So,
and unfortunately, the windows that you see the most on the front of the house are the ones that are in the octagonal section of the porch, and those are where the jalousie windows are. So, doing a storm window on them isn't an option there. But
in a sense, we're going to improve the look by getting rid of those.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I have no argument with getting rid of the jalousies. It's really getting rid of the diamond lights that is concerning.
Right.
So Bill had mentioned to me, Stephanie, that you are the one to talk about landmarking. Obviously, this is not the time for that conversation. But I don't know what's involved in the pros and the cons and all of that. But again, we would love to do the diamonds. If someone wants to make a $100,000 donation, I'm ready.
Just to put this sort of thing in perspective, later on tonight we're going to talk about another house which was a landmark application was submitted, and we recommended landmarking the house. The owners sought a facade easement, and a facade easement was offered in the amount of $150,000. So the facade easements are real money, and again, it's. This house, I think, will retain its historic character far better if either the existing windows are maintained or replaced, in kind, particularly on the portion of the facade that's visible from the street.
Right. Well, the good news is that my contractor is also on this Zoom. He's still on the other side of it, not here with his picture. So he's listening carefully. And I'm sure I will hear from him afterwards about what we can do.
Great.
Anyone else on the item on our agenda? In the absence of that, I think, Bill, will you do the response to the
Yes.
building department on it?
Yep.
Fine, that's okay. So we have no objection, and with some suggestions that will be sent along in our response to the building department. And that should be done in a few days. So thank you very much for explaining some of the issues involved with
Thank
your
you.
project. And good
Thank
luck
you.
with it. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And
Yep.
thank you for the time and the attention, and for Bill's report, which I agree was very thorough. And I've
We'll
never
have to
seen one of these
follow up
reports.
where all those exotic trees came from.
Oh, the previous owner was a tree lover, a horticulturalist, and he traveled the world buying trees.
Wow.
So,
I hope he bought them in legally.
and he's deceased, so we can't ask. And
Um,
he had no children, so I can't even ask his children.
well, good luck with the trees as well. So,
Thank you very much.
right. Have a good holiday. Right.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, that being disposed of, we have the applicant for 189 Lumber Lane, certificate of appropriateness question in terms of the construction that's involved. Let me see if I can pull up the matter here. Okay, let me just first give a little recap of where we are. This is 189 Lumber Lane in Bridgehampton, which we landmarked in 2018, and in 2020 we reviewed a construction project proposed for this building. This just to clear up perhaps in the minds of anybody. This is the major volume of the house that was the more important element for the landmark. As you see, it's got one dormer. That dormer was added in the 1940s by the prior owner architect of the building. And as well, these additions were put on after the original building. I think part of this addition was 1870 or so, and then in the 1940s, some additional renovation took place on this one-story component of this landmark. This, again, is just another oblique view looking at it. Lumber Lane is on this side, and this is the corner lot as well with Narrow Lane in Bridgehampton. This was the original proposal that we approved for certificate of appropriateness in 2020. As you can see, it was to remove the one-story structures that were there and to put on a two-story side gable addition to the house in order to give more living space. The house itself is originally quite small in character. This would have been the basic roof pattern from that 2020 project that we approved. And this again was another elevation plan for the house, indicating the addition with higher ceilings and elevation in the roof ridge. This is just other views. The back of the house, away from the street, would have had this one-story element as well. And here we are at a contemporary time. These photographs were taken about a week ago by Martha, who was not here at the meeting, but she sent them along just to provide some perspective on the current situation. As you can see, the addition that was being put in place was a front gable addition that, from this perspective, doesn't seem too much out of scale, but might from another view. In addition, the addition of another dormer with more windows was also installed. That was not part of the original plan. This gives you another front view of the house, along with the existing condition of the addition that has been erected at the site. This is the proposed construction design for the house that they're seeking approval for. Basically, you can see in this perspective here, this is the original volume at the bottom, and this would be the addition that has put on the house. Here you see the dormer, second floor dormer configuration. I believe these involve bedrooms behind these dormer windows and maybe a bathroom as well. The rear is basically similar to what was originally presented in 2020 for the house. These happen to be the floor plans. I'm not sure that we need to necessarily look at them at this point in time. So the stop work order was issued probably early December sometime for the construction project. And so the applicant is here tonight seeking to provide an explanation of the change of plans and the kind of condition that and circumstances that led to the alteration, which was not cleared by anybody at the time. So with that, Scott, do you want to
Ed, let me just do a little intro here also. So what happened here was this house has a certificate of appropriateness issued by the Landmarks Board based on the original plans. The applicants took it upon themselves to submit revised building plans to the building department without having a CO, a certificate of appropriateness for those revised plans. They actually took it upon themselves to start constructing the building in accordance with the plans that did not even have a building permit, much less a COA. And that's why the stop work order was put up. So they're actually before this board for a revised certificate of appropriateness. Well, that's primarily why they're here, is for the revised COA.
Mhm.
This
I
is a
agree.
landmark building. It's just unbelievable that this was allowed to happen without approvals from this board.
So with that, Scott, do you want to provide your context for this?
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'll do my best to keep this concise, as I see there's a number of items on the agenda. My name's Scott Kosis. My wife Bailey and I are the homeowners. In addition, my father, who's advising us in the project, is dialed in tonight, and our new architect, Robert Costello. And I can't see him, but Mike Senlensky as well is advising us on the project. I think he was joining. I'm not going to claim to be an expert or architect. I do have a master's degree from the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation at Columbia University. I can claim that. But I'm going to defer all the technical issues to Robert Costello to walk you through how we got here. As introduced, Ed, by you first, my wife Bailey and I were granted a certificate of appropriateness for the original plans in December of 2020. Thereafter, we submitted a building permit and received a building permit in July, mid-July of 2021. We bought the house because we fell in love with the history, the architecture, and we were excited about appropriately restoring it and creating additional living spaces for, to accommodate our growing family, which has doubled to 4 since we first spoke, Ed, prior to us purchasing the home, in early February 2020. Our intention has always been to ensure that, the landmarked, distinctly recognizable Greek revival facade that fronts Lumber Lane would not be overpowered with an expansion. In addition, we wanted to appropriately restore, the house as it had, been fairly neglected, and, the prior owner lived out of state and, had it leased on a long-term lease to tenants. The restoration, that we've done has come, and will continue, hopefully, with your approval, with new cedar shingle siding and roofing, refurbished and repainted rake, frieze, dental moldings, and the reinsertion of exterior shutters, with period appropriate pins and holdbacks, etc. Unfortunately, there were unforeseen issues in the plans that were submitted to you and that were submitted to the building department, which required a change. And I just want to briefly walk you through the timeline as to how we got here. And then I'll pass it over to Robert to discuss, the solution we came to, the steps we took, and why we think that these plans, were the best option and are still within, the guidelines of the Secretary of Interior's historic preservation mandate. So, as I mentioned, December of 2020, we presented this time last year, and were provided a COA. In mid-July, we got the building permit and began construction on the home. Around shortly after that time, the design build firm that we'd worked with, we decided to part ways with, and continue on with my dad advising us. My dad is a contractor who's been based out of Huntington, has worked 30 years in the business, and he's now advising us. And so several weeks into the project, we're through demolition and foundation. We begin framing, and in conversations with the subcontractor who was doing the framing, my father quickly realized that there was an issue with the roof line on the north extension that needed to be remedied. And again, Robert's going to walk you through those technical issues. So the next step that we took was we hired Robert Costello, an architect that my father's worked with. We set out quickly to finalize an amendment to these plans so that we could get them submitted again for both a certificate of appropriateness and a building permit. David, thank you for your introduction on the timeline. What we did actually was we submitted as soon as we could both the building permit amendment and the certificate of appropriateness application simultaneously. It was never our intention to skirt around the rules, skirt around the protocols. We tried to do everything in our possibility to respect this process.
But you were building the house that's there now without permits.
I'll get to why we had to do that.
I would call that skirting around the process.
Okay, so we finalized the plans with Robert Costello. Sometime around, we hired Robert in September. We got to the second floor of framing, and we went through several iterations with Robert about what would be a fix to the solution. As I mentioned, we had a house that was completely reframed. Both the existing volume structurally, I'm sorry, my 18-month-old is in the background. And we had a new extension that the bottom floor was framed, the top floor was now coming together, and we were figuring out a roof line. And this is in the middle of, call it October, late October, when, as you all know, we experienced torrential rains for about 2 or 3 weeks. And so we took, a number of days of bad storms in the house, starting to damage all the new lumber that we put in to the extension. And we, made a decision that we wanted to get the house dried in so as to not have to replace all this brand new, very expensive lumber we just paid for. The day we had the plans finalized with Robert Costello, we turned around and my father went to the town and submitted both the building application and the COA simultaneously, as I mentioned. So again, I want to make it clear, in no way were we trying to skirt around any issues. We had, a home that we've invested a lot of our personal net worth into that was being battered by storm after storm. And we needed to get dried in on advice of my father, on advice of the subcontractor. And so that's where we are. I'm now going to pass it over to Robert Costello just to walk through the changes and what brought us here. Robert?
Hi, good evening. Before I get started, I just I wanted to ensure everyone that the floor plans have not changed from the prior plans to the current. I think the change that we're here to discuss is the amendment to the roof design on the north extension. With that being said, I'd like to talk a little bit about the original plans that you had reviewed. With those plans, the north addition had, in order to meet the ridge with the existing ridge, would only have a 1.8 on 12 roof pitch. So that's basically, if you go out 12 inches, it'll only go up less than 2 inches in height. So to accommodate a roof pitch like that, we would have to use like a roofing materials, like a rubber membrane or possibly metal, which definitely could not accommodate a cedar shingle roof that we wanted to use to maintain the original integrity of the house. And then also we have the 45-degree sky plane on the side that those original plans had a hip roof to solve that issue, which is really in opposition to the original Greek Revival 7 on 12 pitch roof line of the existing house.
Possible to put up the images so we can see what you're talking about?
Sure.
I think, Ed, if you go to the plans that were submitted that you brought up at the beginning of the call, you can see the hip roof.
think in addition to the roof line, we're also talking about the facade, the windows. I think there's a lot of different changes.
Okay,
Which,
so,
fa-
you know,
which facade, David, specifically?
The one facing Lumber Lane. Well, actually, all of them, actually.
yeah, so on the original plans, the windows on the new addition turned out to be near the floor, within 10 inches off the floor. And, you know, that's very concerning to have a children's bedroom with the windows so close to the floor. And then you hear about things like that happening all the time with, you know, children falling out. And it's not even in keeping with, you know, the New York State building code having them that low. So, you know, that was another issue with the existing plans.
That's the
Aside
plan
from that, there were other,
That's the plan that received the certificate of appropriateness.
correct, that's the original one with the hip roof to accommodate the sky plane on the side.
Yeah.
Correct. And if you notice, the wall of that addition is higher than the wall of the existing home. And so that's what causes really the shallow pitch on the roof in that area.
Which I think was an issue originally with the COA, was that the ceiling heights are higher in the addition just because it's a modern addition. But I think Landmarks Board, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think what compensated for that was the fact that the peak of the roof was being maintained consistent with the existing house.
Yes, that's my recollection.
Okay.
I mean, ideally,
So-
the top there are I don't know the architectural terms, but the height of the facade would have been the same as the original historic mass, as well as the peak. But in recognizing the desire to build modern additions, that would be in keeping. I think we understood that it would be acceptable to have the wall height higher.
Yeah, correct. I believe the existing home, the wall height is only about 4 feet when out towards the exterior wall.
Well, that's a historic house for you.
Yeah.
That's what you get in
For sure.
historic houses.
Yes. Correct.
That's why you liked it so much, because it was historic.
Yes.
It was historic, but there was also presented some hardships, specifically when walking up the stairs. I'm 6'5", so I'm fairly tall, but about midway up the stairs when I would begin to hit my head. You know, anyone else under 6 feet hit their head, you know, at the top of the step. And again, that presented also a need and a hardship for us to change the plan from the front to back ridge to what it is as now shown on these new plans.
All valid concerns, but they should have been addressed before the Landmarks Board, before you prepared plans and submitted them to the building department and actually went and started constructing it.
David, I understand that. We had a firm that, you know, specializes in historic renovations. That was our architect. You know, we relied on their plans that were approved and, you know, submitted by this board and the town. You know, when we decided to go separate ways and we started to build this structure, you know, we came across an issue, and we came across an issue at a time that, you know, a large portion of the house was already built underneath us. And we needed to make a very quick but thoughtful decision about how to find a solution. You know, Robert can walk you through a number of we didn't just pick an iteration out of our hat and say, we think we should just do this solves all our problems. We looked at keeping the ridge line the same. And I think Robert might be able to speak to how much higher the ridge height would have to be if we kept a front to back ridge similar to the plans that were submitted in December of 2020. And I think the roof height would have resulted 5 feet 6 inches higher than the existing ridge, with an even more drastic hip design on that northern elevation. And again, this would have required the previous plans, which we were unaware of until, you know, we got to this point in September, would have required, you know, with a 1.8 on 12 pitch would have required materials that are just not appropriate with the rest of the house in a historic structure. And that's, rubber membrane is what, a contractor is telling me would need to go onto a 1x8 pitch. I think a cedar shingle pitch, a cedar shingle roof requires, at least a 5 pitch. And so we went through several iterations that got us to this place. We think, and Robert can go on, but, the northern extension is set back 6 feet, as you saw in those photos. It doesn't overwhelm, the historic facade, which I don't know if David was speaking specifically about the historic facade, but the historic facade will be unchanged, other for the fact that it's being restored with, fresh coat of paint on the historic moldings, and new cedar shingles, and a new front door and front door pape. None of that architectural detail that is, recognized and loved in Bridgehampton is going to change. And Ed, do you mind going back to the photo of the real-time front elevation? So that shows you the setback. I think on the 2-dimensional plans, it appears to be a lot more overpowering because they're 2-dimensional. And Ed, if you go to the corner angle view, which that view, this is a view that most people digest this home from, which is the corner of Lumber Lane and Narrow Lane. And as you see, the historic facade stands out 6 feet. I'm, again, not an expert, but it doesn't feel like it's being overburdened or overpowered by the extension. The extension mimics the 712 pitch, which is also the same pitch as the rear extension, which, again, looking back at the guidelines, keeping within that, keeping within, while also separating and differentiating, but paying homage to that Greek Revival facade is something that we ultimately thought was an improvement from the plans that would have resulted in a near flat roof with a hip. To conclude, again, like I mentioned, we got to this place, and we can discuss the doggy dormer if Ed, you would like to. We got to this place because we had plans that were incorrect that we really uncovered once we were, putting framing up on the second floor. The house was starting to get damaged, and we hired someone immediately. We tried to find the best solution that we hope this board would agree and approve. But ultimately, we were in a pretty tough position, given the plans that we had. And so we're hopeful that the board sees and agrees, and I'll turn it back to Ed to ask any questions.
So what are the proposed ceiling heights or plate heights for the first floor and the second floor, or actually now that it's been constructed in the addition?
They were, it's both 8 feet, first floor and second floor. And that was also on the original plans as that.
Bill, I would also add that, in trying to keep this extension ridge height from being too overpowering, we dropped the floor 5 inches. Again, I'm 6'5" tall. Even an 8-foot ceiling seems a little claustrophobic at times, but we took steps to try to minimize the impact of this extension on the historic facade.
And the stairs that you talked about earlier, is that in the original house or is that in the addition?
That's in the original house. At the top of this, for me, at the middle of the stairs in the original house, I can't confirm the exact height off the stairs, but with 4 or 5 stairs to go, I was bumping my head. And so
Yeah,
we
so the
effectively
stairs are,
had to build a cricket roof to get to transition from the historic volume into the north extension.
And you've said several times that there was a problem with the original design. What was that problem?
One of the problems was that it resulted in a 1.8/12 pitch on the north extension.
In considering the roofing materials for this, your extension here, was any thought given to asphalt shingles as opposed to cedar?
Yes, and on advice of the roofing contractor, my father's, who's also been in the business for 30 years, we were told even asphalt shingles were not appropriate for a 1.8/12 pitch. Aesthetically, we also preferred to have cedar shingle roof.
Another question is, what are the plans for finishing, painting, whatever on the addition, particularly on the side facing lumber lane?
The plans for the entire house are to put on white cedar shingle siding and cedar shingle roofing. On the historic facade, that would be, again, in addition to that, refurbishing but completely maintaining the existing molding, frieze, dental molding, etc. Painting it, repainting it white, sanding, molding, refurbishing. On the extension, our plan was to pay homage to the molding by doing a similar molding, but not identical, such that, per the guidelines, the new addition would be separate and distinct, but also in context with the historic volume. So it was our intention to do similar break, freeze, and molding, but not identical.
Just one thought, and this is just my thought here, to emphasize the fact that this addition is not historic, and may or may not be in keeping with what had been intended here. Consideration might be given to leaving the addition in a color that is different from the original historic volume, so as to differentiate it from the actual historic structure. Now, that's just my thought.
I'm not sure if this would qualify as a difference, and I'll defer to the rest of the group, but we were intending on, adding, if you can see, the windows are on the top floor, slightly smaller, doing, flower boxes underneath those windows, maybe potentially a top molding that's a little bit thicker than the historic structure. But we certainly can take away your comment. Pardon me.
Yeah. I'm just kind of, the thought here is that houses were often extended by additions, et cetera. And, the additions didn't necessarily totally mimic the original structure. And they're definitely, somewhat architecturally distinct, which is what we have here. And it would be, in my mind, at least, beneficial to what we have here to leave the historic volume in a more prominent visual situation, not only because it's more forward of the addition, but also because, at least presently, it's in a color that stands out more and is more visible than the more subdued coloring of the addition.
Sorry. The addition currently has no cedar siding on it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to.
Right. I wasn't proposing here.
I didn't know if you could
there.
see that was
But-
just house wrap and that wasn't.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I'm referring more to the final color of the exterior, facade. And to me, it would be, you do have it set back from the facade of the historic structure, which is preferable to otherwise. But I think to further emphasize it in terms of being a more recent structure, and perhaps to sort of visually reduce its volume, to leave it in a color that is not quite as standout a color as the current yellow and white scheme of the historic volume.
My sense of having differentiated color is that it would be curious to the residents of Bridgehampton that the uniformity of the exteriors is the predominant motif. We have had modern additions to historic buildings in Bridgehampton, the Topping Rose House. Of course, that distinction, the addition to it is separated by a glass partition, a space from the original building. I think you're kind of limited in terms of how you would try to differentiate the old from the new. In part, the windows speak to that to some degree. And probably by the time you have the pilasters, that probably they might be slightly differentiated as well. But I don't think color differentiation is the way to go. Other comments and questions?
I had a question, but it's more basic. What I printed was a construction application. I don't see a COA unless I didn't print it. If the homeowner mentioned it was submitted a while back, I don't think I've seen it unless I missed it.
I haven't seen it either.
The
Well,
COA.
right. No, I don't think the form has been filed. This is the building plans that have been forwarded.
We're not reviewing building plans until they submit a COA application.
Right. Well, so we don't have the form submitted appropriately then.
Correct.
But that's what I find curious because a homeowner said that it had been submitted. So I'm
Hey, Ed, my father's on the call. I'm not sure if you can make him a panelist, but he was the one who submitted both the building permit amendment and the certificate of appropriateness application. So he can speak to that. If you can add him, his name's Mike Kosis.
Janet, do we have a
I can let him
COA?
in.
No, there's no COA.
There's no application for a new COA.
No,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Dad?
Okay, I went to the building department before Thanksgiving, and I met with Maura at the building department. At that point, I was bringing the multiple copies of the revised building plans for an amendment there. She advised me the things to add to the application, which is all the landmark stuff. She wrote it all out for me. I came back over the weekend on the Monday, and she was off that day, but it was a complete package. The gentleman at the desk, the tall gentleman, don't know his name, he took the landmarks because we were faced with the first Tuesday deadline to submit the application. So he said, okay, he took it and he physically walked it to your department. I came back when Maura was there. And at that point, Mr. Wilcox had put the stop work order on it.
I didn't put a stop work order on it.
He was not able to accept my building permit application. So frankly, what you have is the landmarks application. You don't have the building permit application because I passed that on to the lawyer because we're going to meet to see if we can resubmit it. They said, well, let's wait for this hearing. We wait the 3 weeks to see what the thing is, and then they will accept the building permit application. So you have the complete, all the copies, the 3 copies of the 11 by 17 blueprints, plus the photographs, plus the previous COA, everything that she said needed to be part of that application was hand delivered by the gentleman in the building department desk.
Thanks, Dad.
Let me just clarify. I don't put stop work orders on. I simply advised the building department that they might want to take a look at what was being constructed to determine whether it was being built in accordance with the approved building plans.
Correct.
I believe
And
that upon their inspection, they issued a stop work order.
Thanks for clarifying. Ed, Janet, have you spoken to Maura about this?
I received the construction application. I did not receive a COA.
No, you haven't.
What we have here is the application to amend the building permit. It indicates that there were revised blueprints attached. We are requesting approval to amend the building permit with an updated.
Ed, what you're looking at there was just a letter that I wrote giving the board and town background on what we were submitting an amendment for.
Right.
If my dad can chime in, but there was obviously the fulsome application package, which he just discussed. He worked with the town to provide. In any event, we can obviously provide this if you don't have it, as soon as possible.
There are 2 distinct applications. One is the construction application that you submitted, and then there is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for a landmark structure, which is a separate form.
Tim, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Is this any better?
Much better.
Yeah.
Okay. There's 2 distinct applications. What was submitted was a construction application. What we are requesting is a certificate of appropriateness application that is necessary when you have a landmark structure. So they're 2 distinct things. You have one, but not yet the other.
Thank you, Tim. It's my understanding that we submitted or we're certainly aware that there are 2 distinct applications. I think what we're talking about with my dad was that the certificate of appropriateness application, separate and apart, was also completed and tried to be conveyed to the town. But again, if the town doesn't have it, which you're saying you don't, we'll certainly get it to you as soon as possible.
Well, that's something then we will have to adjourn our judgments until we get the paperwork clarification and get the proper information for the certificate of appropriateness. So further questions?
They're available online if you go to the landmarks page or check with Janet or the.
Right. If you know how to find the form if you need the form. It is on the website, the town's website, on the Landmarks Board page under forms and applications if you need to fill it out. So.
Thank you. Again, it's not my understanding that we did, but we'll certainly resubmit or get you what you need as soon as possible.
Okay, and if that takes place, then we can look forward to something at the January meeting then.
We'd submit it before the deadline for the January meeting so that the board has sufficient time to review these plans at home and to be able to come to the meeting having fully reviewed it rather than getting it, the week before the meeting or 2 weeks before.
Okay, if there's nothing else on this,
To check with them.
so, well, we will adjourn this in the prospect of seeing an application, official application for our January meeting. And unless it's lost in town hall and we find it, we'll let you know.
It is, it is.
Great, thank you, Ed.
So,
We'll look for it.
Thanks, David.
as you know, sometimes during this COVID era, that town hall isn't always fully staffed and sometimes not smoothly functioning. So we'll see if there was in fact some error or mistake in terms of getting it to the landmarks board.
If they had that application, they could just resubmit the one that they.
Right. Well, we have to know where the system gets broken too. So.
Sure, we'll call Maura first thing tomorrow and make sure she can locate it for us. And if she can't locate it again, we'll get it resubmitted.
Okay, fine. And as I think you might expect, this is the first time we've had a case like this where building construction took place that was not appropriate to the approved certificate of appropriateness. And so we are going through our learning experience in terms of trying to figure out how to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future as well. So with that, I don't think there's anything else to add. So thank you for explaining things tonight, and we'll hope things go more smoothly the next time.
Thanks, Ed.
Right. Okay, we can proceed to our next items on the agenda. 178 South Country Road, Remsenburg. Let's see if I can.
Okay, so we looked at an application for this property in November 2020, so a year ago, and it was a construction application. They were going to remove all the interior finishes, insulate the walls, replace all the doors and windows, insulating glass. They had shown 6/1 light cut. We had recommended a 2/1 light cut to match the windows that were in the house now. And there was a previous one-story addition on the back of the house that was going to be enlarged to be a two-story addition, and a portion of it overhanging the first floor to create a porch. And we didn't object to the work that was going to be done. The addition was on the rear of the house. The front of it was going to be basically intact. They got their permit, they got their contractor, and a month and a half or so ago, they started work. They stripped off the siding, they gutted the interior, they pulled all the windows and doors, looked like they were following their permit, doing their job. There you go. And I went by on a Saturday afternoon, and it was a pile of rubble. They had completely demolished the house.
And I mean, Bill, it's important to note that this building is not a landmark, not like the previous one. This,
correct. You know, it is not a landmark. It had been to us for a construction application. It is not in the AKRF. It is also not in the historic profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton. It's also not in the potential Spionk, Remsenburg historic district. But it does have an AYB of 1900. We found it on the maps from 1902 and 1916. Why it's not in the AKRF, you know, they obviously missed it. It looked very intact, had a wonderful little round top window in the gable end at the north and south ends. Beneath that on this end is a 16/16 stained glass window that is sort of at an odd height that goes into the stairwell. And then you can see on the front, on the porch, the windows being 2/1 is why we made that recommendation with the proposed project. So they are back to us now for a demolition application. They did demolish the house without a permit, without coming to us again. I had notified David, David notified the building department, they issued the stop work order. So here they are. I find it aggravating that that they did this. They had the house stripped right down to the frame. And if you look at the architect's original letter on the condition of the house, he states that it's in good condition. And he comments on that they are going to replace the windows, and in redoing the interior finishes, they will insulate the house to bring it up to the energy code. When we got the demolition application, he then stated that the windows would have to be replaced because they didn't meet the energy code and the house didn't have any insulation, so it would have to be insulated. And those are the reasons that it was demolished. Although they were on the original application as work to be done. So I'm not really sure why they suddenly decided they were going to knock it down. They had gone through all the process of getting it ready for the alteration and the addition, and then they just knocked it down. Talking to the architect, he stated that he didn't know it was to be demolished. It was a decision made between the contractor and the owner based on the contractor saying that it would be cheaper and quicker to knock it down and start from scratch. But in a COVID environment, the cost of the framing materials, even just labor and insurance for projects all going up, I can't really see that they would have been saving any money, because the project that they now propose is to rebuild this house just like it was, but include the addition that they had proposed. So they're basically rebuilding the house as it was, not a bigger one, not changing things. That's the part I don't get. If you already had the frame in place, how is there a savings to create a new frame that's exactly the same? So that was confusing. I did include Ed and Stephanie and then David in some emails that went back and forth. I was contacted by John Bouvier, who had gotten my report, taken a look at it, and was wondering who the architect and the contractor were, and how things like this can happen, and how in the future we can do something to prevent it.
The way to prevent it is to be able to landmark such structures easily.
Yes, and I did include a note in my emails to John about the report that Vicky had provided about the certified legal, I can't remember what is it, CLG?
Certified local government.
Yes.
Local government status.
Yes, I did put a plug in there for that too. So the house is gone. There's just a hole in the ground. But you know, Stephanie and I have talked about this, and we want to get on record as objecting to the demolition.
Indeed, it's an interesting house. It's
yes,
it has a certain elegance to it, even.
Yeah,
a curved roof.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
difficult to replicate.
And looking at the pictures from the original application, the house was in good condition. So, the architect didn't really have a good reason for why they knocked it down.
Hmm. So, do you have any special language available to put in the response that would be an objection?
Yes.
Any thoughts from colleague board members?
I'm in line with Bill. We wouldn't have, I think, if this had been originally presented as a demolition application, I don't think we would have had no objection. I think we would have objected, and I am totally on board with objecting now, particularly in light of the fact that it was demolition without a permit.
Mm-hmm. Are we all in agreement? So, looks like it. And
Okay.
so be it.
I'll make the response.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Another demolition application that we had was for 86 North Phillips Avenue, Spionk, but
85 or 86?
I'm sorry,
85.
85. And Stephanie and myself looked at it and thought that the significance of it did not require full review, and so informed the building department.
Question, Stephanie, did we review this for the planning board once?
We've reviewed it for the planning board twice.
Twice, okay, that's.
Yep. And
Thought it was-
in both cases, we had no objection that they both occasions they planned to demolish all the structures. And in fact, on the second letter, we said specifically we don't need to review any demolition permit application that may be forthcoming for this property. So
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And just as a further note, the town board approved commissioning the demolition and providing a lien against the property for that work. I think they did that maybe at the last town board meeting, but I recall that was on the agenda. Okay. Next is 34 Mineola Court, Hampton Bays. And I did take a look at this a little bit. It's a construction application. And generally an interior work being proposed. Kind of an unusual building. Let me This is located on the shoreline of Sienna Bay. I checked as much as I could, aerial imagery for 1938 did not show a building here. And in tracking the history of it, let me see if I can get the history of it. The former owner of it was William H. Byrne, and here is in 1953 the transaction where he is buying the parcel for $8,000 from John Van Dyck and wife. John Van Dyck, you can see back here, in 1945, was involved in real estate transactions. He was a New Jersey resident and had been apparently involved in this area of Tiana, and basically was selling vacant real estate at the time. So my sense is that that house is not terribly recent, terribly old rather. Kind of an odd house. Looks like it might have been added to several times. Has a lot of glass overlooking the water. So I found nothing of note for the individuals who were associated with the early presence of this structure, and whether it was 1940s or 1950s. The house itself does not seem to have any architectural merit, unless one of my architect colleagues here would disagree with that opinion.
Nope.
I think the current owners inherited the house from a parent as well. I didn't exactly track the sales and transactions associated with it in recent times. So my recommendation is basically not to object to any changes taking place. They are not likely to affect the exterior in any way that would be offensive more than it might be now.
Were there any drawings at all of the proposed, or just the site plan?
The drawings in the back of the application, Bill.
Okay.
Actually, I think the changes might improve this structure.
Kind of hard to wind up interpreting the floor plan. So
As the elevations were interesting. There we go.
Okay.
They're going up.
Yep. Well, definitely an improvement, so.
That was what I thought.
Rather large windows.
Yeah, they're right on the bay though, right on Tiana.
I wonder how stormproof they'll be. No. Any other thoughts? My inclination would be not to object.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so in the absence of any other comments, I'll file a response on that. "45 Station Road, Bill and Stephanie reviewed the application and didn't, and I can't remember exactly what the question was associated with it, but recommended and responded to the building department that it didn't merit a full review.
Yeah, there had been a fire on the back of the structure, and it was repairs in kind to the back of the structure, which the structure itself showed, to my mind, no historic fabric of any value.
Okay, all right. So, all right. 18 Jagger Lane, West Hampton. And Stephanie, this is a historic resource itemization in the AKRF report.
Yes.
Can you recap the application?
Yeah. The application is for primarily interior renovations. This is a house that appears to have been constructed about 1929. We're not sure, but based on its architecture, it looks like it may have been one of Fred Jagger's houses. This Jagger Lane was opened up and originally occupied by members of the Jagger family for quite a few years, and they operated a number of businesses on Jagger Lane, and some of them still live on Jagger Lane. There is an identified historic resource immediately to the south. It's also another similar sort of Dutch colonial style dwelling, also likely a Jagger property. The proposed work includes gutting and renovating much of the first floor interior of the original volume of the dwelling. And then there's a first floor addition that is going to enlarge the kitchen and dining area, which is kind of the back quarter, would be the northeast quarter of the house, to the back toward an existing garage. And yeah, if you can get up the, yeah, that's a picture of the front of the house. The original volume is on the left there, the two-story volume. And then there are a number of additions that were done in the 1990s off to the right there that not totally in keeping with the house, and they're all pretty clearly visible from the street. I will note that work was already underway when I went and did the site visit. They had removed some siding from the second-story dormer there and thrown on some house wrap, and they're going to be restoring the siding in that area. They've also re-roofed, re-shingled the roof on that side. Inside, they have gutted the areas that they're going to be working on, which is the kitchen and living area that are to the right of the front, or the left of the front door there. Yeah, that next picture shows the north end of the house, the original volume. It is now attached to a garage that I think that has an AYB of 1980, but it looks darn similar to the main house. And it may have been joined to it at some point in the past with an addition. The only thing that's jarring on this north end of the house is that there's a small slider window in the kitchen area, which fortunately will be eliminated by the construction work. You can see the dumpster there already. The dumpster contains the contents of the gutted first story of that end of the house, as well as some of the roofing materials from the front of the house. The next picture down, Ed, shows the back of the house, which is where the additional will be most visible. And it's actually going to be sort of hidden behind that tree there. It's going to just bump out the back wall of the kitchen a little bit, where it's already been bumped out by a prior addition in the past. There are 2 sliding glass doors there now. There will be a 3rd sliding glass door when they get done. This side of the house is not visible from any public street. It's entirely enclosed, fenced, and backs up on a wooded swamp that should not have any dwellings on it in the future. So the addition essentially will be not visible from the street. A couple of interesting details on the next picture, Ed, and these are things that are not proposed to be changed. Yeah, there you go. There's the front door. Front door looks original. The side lights look original. Those little lanterns on either side look original. And to me, the most interesting thing are those shutters. They are fully operable shutters in fabulous condition. And on the back of each one is carved a number corresponding with the window number. So if you took the shutters off, you could get them back in the correct place. And the only problem with the shutters is that they've put on those triple track windows on the front of the original windows so that the shutters can't actually close anymore because the triple tracks are in the way. But none of these features is proposed to be changed by this proposed work. And then the last picture, the next one down, Ed, just shows the interior view through the front door. The house was secured. There's nobody living there full time right now, although they do have plastic that's off to the right of this photo, cordoning off the living areas, which they seem to visit on weekends or holidays or whatever, cordoning off the living areas from the areas they're doing work on. And you can see it to the left there, the gutted kitchen and living room area. This area is all going to be opened up to be one kind of big family room, kitchen, whatever area. And it looks to me like if there was any historic fabric in there previously, it had been removed by prior additions. You can see the hi-hat in the ceiling right above the stairwell there. So the interior definitely has seen prior work. So I have no objection to the proposed work because it's mostly not going to be visible from the street, and it doesn't look like it's going to remove any historic fabric. They're not proposing replacing windows other than that non-historic kitchen window. So I don't see this having any impact on the historic resources of the town. I think my only observation is that they're already doing the work without a permit yet.
Stephanie, does all of the work that they were doing need a permit if they're just reshingling or?
Yeah, if they're just reshingling, my understanding is that they don't need it. I couldn't really tell how much of the interior work would have required. It didn't look like they were doing any wiring or plumbing yet. It looked like it was just gutting stuff.
Yeah.
So they may not need a permit at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you see things that look like they should have a permit when you do these inspections, let me know. And I'll bring them to the building department's attention. And if they need a stop work order, they'll get it.
Yeah. If I had seen something more substantial that, I mean, I don't know all of the instances where you need a permit or don't need a permit, but I didn't see anything going on here that necessarily would require a permit. It's just always, I hate to see the loss of materials that I could have otherwise documented.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise, I didn't report this to building because I didn't see anything in your a reporter in your pictures that looked like they were doing anything that needed a permit.
Yeah.
So any other further comments? If not, Stephanie, would you do the honors of responding to the building department?
I certainly will. Yep.
Okay, thank you. .480 Majors Path, Southampton. Okay, North Sea as well. So let me see if we can get the perspective here. So this says pre-1941 dwelling. It's a unusual dwelling.
Yeah.
If I can. Maybe I had some pictures here. What's wrong here? Okay, this involves an unusual house, stuccoed house. I think they want to re-side it with cement board, if I recall.
Yep.
They had some decent pictures in the application too. Let me bring that up.
When I spoke to these owners, originally they wanted to do like a clapboard siding, which would have eliminated the stucco look entirely, I thought.
Uh-huh. Replacement of windows, replacement of roof, new gutters, interior cabinetry and carpentry, new flooring and bathroom, which are not in our domain. No. So you can see the nature of the unusual building. Obviously needs some attention from what these photographs indicate. I have no idea of the builder or the person involved in this, unable to track that. Interesting door.
It's near that subdivision called Gondola. What was it? Gondola something, Gondola Park in North Sea.
It's Gondola Gardens. And
Gondola Gardens. I'm wondering if there are any houses in that subdivision that had this appearance.
I've been through that area and I mean, I can't tell you if there's one. There's some interesting little houses in there, but I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
I would have to pull up an old report. I took a few pictures.
It's certainly a unique house for the town of Southampton.
Yeah.
It's a bit obscured by, I mean, you can see it from the street, but there is a lot of foliage around it, so it's not always something that people might notice easily unless it was called to their attention. Is this where Gondola Gardens is located?
I think it's further north. It's on Little Fresh Pond, I think, right?
It's on North Sea Road, off of North Sea Road, where you go through the little business area. There are a number of little streets right off of there.
Oh, well, yeah, it would be useless trying to search it out. Yeah, okay. So, any thoughts about how this should be treated? Not having been close to it, I don't know the actual condition and how much basic repair is being done and how much new aesthetic is being added to the project.
Certainly the siding is going to, change the exterior appearance somewhat, but this house is clearly in need of work.
Yeah.
And it seems that a lot of the work is definitely what is needed here. Roofing and interior work.
It does not look like it has much living space available for it.
No, and there's no additions planned.
I'm looking at a survey here and it said it's lots 1 and 2 in the map of Townsend Terrace. It was a map filed January 6, 1928. So that.
Well, I don't have any specific objections to it, and I don't. It's an unusual building, and attention to its history is probably needed to document it a little bit more. But that wouldn't necessarily have any bearing on the question of what our response would be. Does this look like an interior chimney? I mean, a chimney from the interior?
Yes.
Either that or a bathroom, like a vent.
No. Let's see if there is any clues to. Well, there would be a bathroom. Yeah. So, well, it doesn't provide any clues as to what all the features are, but anyone have any concerns?
Nope.
Okay, if not, I will respond accordingly that we have no objection. Okay, 189 we have already dealt with. 28 Shepherd Street we have dealt with. 246 Scuttle Hole Road, Watermill. This is Susan's bailiwick.
Vicky also, my report is from 2015, and I didn't get a chance to update that, but I will try to pull that up unless you have it, Ed.
I don't believe I have it in the current file. Let's see.
I sent it to you and Vicky earlier. Basically, when I did the research, it was at behest of Sally for the new homeowner at the time.
Right.
And a number of ambiguities that really needed to be sorted out with his age. But Vicky was the one who made the site made the site visit. So if she wants to start, and then we can go back and look at what I found. Because you actually needed someone to look at the building and get an impression, the year, age, if it had been there.
Okay, let me see if I can give a geographical reference here for everyone to view.
While you're pulling up, the reason there's a discrepancy is because the AYB is 1740, and if you look at the interior pictures provided with the applications, and also like real estate ads at the time, there are a number of wooden beams in a lot of the rooms. However, it doesn't appear on the Halsey map until 1850, and with the name of the family, at some point they said one house was destroyed by fire and another one was rebuilt, and I'm not sure if it's in this location. I also checked the 1838 coastal map, which I didn't have access to in 2015, and I didn't see it there. However, if you look at the interior pictures, it looks quite old.
Let's bring up the application.
And there was one little section of the basement in their application that you could see a little bit of stone rubble. And I think Vicky talked to the homeowner and said that was the only place that it was
right
visible.
I mean, it's a beautiful setting, very beautiful setting, but it's hard to decipher actually what is left of the original structure, because there seem to have been multiple additions and changes, add-ons over the years. I don't know the date of each reconstruction, but the windows, I don't know that there are any original windows left. Fenestration seems to have been almost completely replaced. The family is going to make some additions now. The family is growing, the current owners. I think that Susan did a review of the family ownership history, but in walking the site, I wasn't even clear from the original structure as to where the front of the original building actually was, because there looked to have been two front doors. So whether the house was relocated from another site, or whether they just continued to build on to this structure, it was difficult to ascertain. I could not get into the interior of the house, but all of the foundation work that was visible from the exterior was clearly relatively recent. And Susan, I think you had pictures of the interior, and I hope you were able to upload my exterior photos.
I think they're in the application, the interior photos.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go back to it. One thing that I can I thought is unusual. First of all, it does have a central chimney here,
Mhm.
Yes.
indicating probably a fairly old house. Its location, its siting is unusual relative to Scuttle Hole Road.
Right.
Scuttle Hole Road is one of the oldest roads in the town of Southampton. I think probably 1730 or something like that. It goes back. But what I notice about this house is that it faces south. And early houses built, face south in order to capture the sun. Very early ones, and especially you see that in the salt box houses around Bridgehampton. A lot of them now, most of them are all gone. But so that was one thing that struck me as being a little unusual about this house, was its positioning relative to the road and relative actually to the north-south direction, allowing the windows to face into the sun as the front of the house. So
let me see if I can pull up mine.
So I think we have interior photos here. Looks like they collect rocks.
That's actually the access. You can see a little bit of the access to the crawl space there.
Here, yeah. Here's your wooden beams that Susan was talking about. They're certainly not milled. Floors are relatively new. More old wood. Wide plank floors, where you can even see a little bump in the wood of the planks.
Ed, I've pulled up my report, but I don't seem to see the screen anymore.
See
I
to
was trying to share it, but I don't.
when was that report done?
It was 2015. I'll just read you what I found out without showing you all the maps.
Okay.
The summary of it was, let me find the beginning here, that there were a number of discrepancies because as it relates to the historic maps, according to the 1700 and the 1750 maps, William and Jonah Tarbell, who later owned this house, they had a house down on Mecox Road in Bridgehampton.
Right.
And the subject house is not shown until 1800 in this location on the Halsey maps.
Mm-hmm.
I found it on 1850 on another one. There were newspaper articles that said that Tarbell family resided in the same location for 200 years, but the house was destroyed by fire and rebuilt. That was in the Sag Harbor Express. And I'm not sure if they're referring to the house down near Job's Lane on Mecox or this one. And also the sketches from local history gave us circa 1810 for the Turbo House. So there were a number never had a chance to figure out. There's a lot of research, but there's nothing definitive except the house looks older. So the question was it moved there? But I have a tendency to agree with Ed. It was facing south. And it may just not have been shown on the map at the appropriate time. That could have been a Scrivener error.
Right.
So,
Well,
why can't I see my screen anymore? Maybe I need to sign in again. I don't hear Charles in the background, so.
you're there, Susan.
Well, I'm glad I'm there. So let me try.
You're there.
I guess I'll just cancel my. So where am I? I go to this one? No.
Well, you have a little Zoom camera on your.
No, they want me to take a health and wellness break on Zoom. That's what my ad says. So. Why don't I just sign in again? How's that sound?
You don't have to.
But I can't see you. Aha.
What do you
have?
I see.
You have to close that window.
There I go. Okay.
Because you're sharing. That's why.
Okay.
Okay. So, are you okay?
Yep, I'm back. Thank you. I took a health and wellness break. So anyways, those are my discrepancies that I never got to sort out. I found a number of articles on the Turnbull family. After that, it was sort of interesting. It was Tarbell, and then Sarah Turnbull married into the Edwards family. I think he had a chicken farm. After that, they had no children. It was sold to the Yastremskys, which included Carl, the baseball player.
Well, that was his father was born there.
Right, Carl Jr. After that, it went to the Sanders family. And then around 1976, I married Ellen Barrett, who was Irving Berlin's daughter. She owned it for approximately 38
Right.
Almost 40.
So, 1800, as you pointed out, William Tarbell was in Mecox. William D. Halsey in Sketches of Local History suggests it might have been built in 1810.
Yeah.
But that's an open question. In looking at the deeds of surrounding properties, in 1856, there's a deed where Asher Benedict transacts a property, noting that it adjoins the property of Charles Tarbell. So Charles Tarbell was there in 1856. He's noted on the 1858 Chase map as well, and going forward, the 1873 maps and further on, it goes from Tarbell and eventually to Frank Edwards. There is in the census records, there's some confusion about whether the Tarbells were related in some fashion to the Edwards family.
I thought Sarah was a Tarbell, at least that was my recollection.
Her original name, she's buried as a Lester.
Okay.
Sarah Lester
I saw
Edwards.
that also.
Yeah. So
I think there was a first husband and a second husband type thing.
that might explain all the family confusion. They were farmers locally, and who did the additions? I couldn't spot any
There were some 1990s additions done, so I think that's some of the ones. It was like a 1-story and a 2-story addition. So that's
Right, yeah. But
one of
there might have been earlier additions, and whether they were done in the era when Yastrzemski family owned it or not is, is an open question. So.
And I think the owner said that the one particular Yastrzemski may have been Southampton Village Police Chief at one time. And I didn't get that far in that family, but I do believe there was a Yastrzemski in the village.
Yeah, the current owner believes that to be the case. He's very interested in the history of the property as well.
Yeah. So, any opinions about this project?
No, I think from what they pointed out, and Vicky was there, that even if they, with the additions they are doing, it's going to be not affect the older sections of the house. Is that what you?
Yes, that's correct. They their concern was really expanding the kitchen and replacing a bathroom because they've got a young family with children, and the layout just is difficult for them. But they really didn't plan on touching any of the historic, let's put it, area of the original structure. They would like to, be mindful of that. But again, in terms of fenestration, there's like nothing left to preserve there.
I think there's something with the front door. I'm not sure if it's the one on the south, that they were going to put some type of a portico or some type of a front porch. But since there have been so many additions, I don't know that one more would
These are pictures that were taken by Vicky.
Yes.
Thank you, Vicky. Excellent production.
Okay.
Yeah, a new 1-story enclosed entry vestibule. But I don't know that. So there's so many additions that one more.
Yeah. They're going to put that on the, I think it's the south elevation of the house, and the window above it is going to be replaced by a smaller one because in that 2nd-story area, they're going to be adding a new closet. So the existing 6/6 is going to go away and be replaced by a 4-pane light.
I think the biggest thing is going to end up being they're going to do a whole new driveway system. Not that that affects the house itself, but the setting will be changing because they're going to have 2 entryways in a separate parking area.
Right.
Yep.
Garage area parking.
The house looks magnificent there.
Yes.
I think the architect noted that the central chimney, the interior portions had been rebuilt that Vicky wasn't able to get into.
Exactly. Yeah. Too bad.
But I mean, Vicky, you were there. How do you feel with it? I don't think you had an objection.
I have no objection.
And I defer to Vicky because she saw it in person.
You can see that's all new foundation.
Yes, yeah. Deer fencing around.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Vicky, do you or Susan, do you want to file a response?
I can file the response as long as it's after Christmas is okay, I assume.
That's fine, and unless Vicky wants to undertake, I don't think you've ever filed a response.
No, I haven't.
So how about learning?
I'm happy to learn if Susan is gonna tutor me there.
Well, if Susan is busy, I can help along the way.
Okay, very good.
We can work together on it. So you're going to do it, Vicky, and we'll work together on it then?
Yes.
Okay.
So
very good.
So you're off the hook, Susan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. And 188, let's see, how does this work? This is a neighborhood that I learned from Susan, was once called Polish Town.
That's as per Marlene's book, yes. It's the Benedict family that had the mill and the ice business and all their other businesses. Around the turn of the century, they had so many employees coming from Poland that I think at first they bought a number of houses in that area and rented rooms. But then as the families grew and stayed, they started buying neighboring properties, and which resulted in some of the smaller homes and built in the 20s and 30s, because, and you can see a number of, this one had belonged to a Polish family, Julia Zapłajski. But if you look at the one particular survey, it's all surrounded by other people with Polish last names.
This is the house we're talking about. It has the house, and then it has a one-story cottage in back as well.
And I think the cottage is 1953, but the garage is 1938, and the house 1938. One thing the application does not mention is the demolition of the garage, but I looked at the town building application and they say demolition of garage. So it's actually construction and a demolition.
Okay, let me just catch things here.
I think because to build the house and the additions on the configuration that they want, it goes over where the garage currently is.
Yeah, I didn't find this on, unfortunately, the maps, both aerial maps and real estate maps, have this neighborhood on the borders or edges of the maps. But this would be where the house is on would be Head of Pond Road, right where that arrow is, and there is a branch road off of Head of Pond Road there. This is the 1916 map. And let's see.
I think it most likely belonged to the Halsey family. We did one at 109 Upper Seven Ponds. It was Shadrick's family, the people that had the mill. We did 8 Upper Seven Ponds, and then there was Shadrick and Daniel. I think Shadrick owned this property to the east. I mean, Nathan and Shadrick, Nathan, and then went to Oscar. So I assume at some point that's where the Benedicts were buying land from the people who had run the sawmill there.
Right. Well, this is the 1938 map, and it shows an empty property here. This is not 188 where you see this new driveway here. 188 would be here, right at the fork in the road. So this is the aerial. This is a GIS aerial indicating 188 as of today. So
I think there was one survey I looked at from the 1970s, and it said it was based on a Wallace H. Halsey surveys from 1930 and 1938 or 9. So my guess is there was some type of survey work done there, but like you said, it didn't show up on the town 1930 map. It was some type.
Well, the family, it was built by Wojciech Tyborowski.
Oh,
And the way that was found out, if I can get the affidavit here. His son, this is a affidavit from 1975, I believe, 2010. But his son Joseph testifies that when he was young, he helped build the property, the house on the property, and the two-car garage was constructed in the early 1940s and long prior to 1957. So the house subject is in its present location in 1939 by his father, Joseph. I think his father also had another first name, but that's his testimony on it. So that being at least the original Tiborowski in the census, he is a laborer for landscape services, I guess, in association with the Benedict's operation. Would you not think so, Susan?
yeah, they were in landscaping also.
Right. So the application itself,
it looks like a substantial addition, but since it's actually going perpendicular, the small house, and there are a couple breezeway type connectors, it may not be quite as lost in it.
right.
They look like they're just maintaining this as a small wing.
Right. This is the garage, and this is the one-story second residence on the property that's there. But as you can see, this is a small house. This is a neighborhood that was basically built up by newly arriving agricultural or landscape or service personnel for Watermill and the surrounding area, and heavily Polish. Isn't that correct, Susan?
Yes.
Yeah, heavily Polish. Yeah.
Because we've had a few others in this area, and if you go back to the earlier deeds, most of them have they were owned by a Polish family. Of course, in this case, they built it, but it looked like it was subdivided into 3 parcels. This one near the road, and the other 2 were flag lots.
Yeah, well, some time back. Yeah. So this is a substantial alteration of size and presence.
That luckily doesn't face the road, the front gable section. If you go up a little farther, I think you see the east. Yeah, there it is. It's still long, but it's a different perspective. Wide, I guess, is the word. It's not an AKRF.
I suppose there is something to be said for preserving an original small cottage. But
And if you drive by it now with the screening, you can almost see it because it's winter, but it's not right on the road. It sits back a little bit. And with the screening, it's like softened down a little bit.
this seems rather, I haven't looked at the masking of any landscaping or anything, but this looks a little austere, kind of in your face presence compared to the lower roof lines on the side buildings. So any comments or thoughts about these plans? Well, I have no specific objection
I have
myself.
lost my audio, Ed.
You have lost your audio? We hear you. So if there's no problem with this, I will respond accordingly and send a no objection.
Thank you, Ed. I missed part of that, but I lost my audio. I agree. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, let's stop sharing, so to speak. Nathaniel Rogers House, the COA is probably still a project needing more work. Vicki, do you think you need some help on that?
Yeah, I've just been just under tremendous time crunches for my business, which has delayed me.
Okay,
So,
I mean, there is basically no rush. There's no.
yeah, I know. I would like to get it off the agenda just as much as you.
Yeah. Well, it's don't get too obsessed about it at this time. Wait till things slow down and are more manageable.
Okay. Thank you.
The referral 360 Montauk Highway, Eastport, that previously David had reported is a matter that had been taken to Justice Court, and I don't expect that we have any updates on that.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. 149 South Country Road, I don't know if there's anything there.
Actually, I do want to report a little bit. I had a discussion with Kyle Collins, who was one of the people who put in for the application for landmarking and then sought an easement. The property has at this point been sold. Kyle and his investors sold it to a new owner. They didn't want to wait any longer for the easement to come through. They needed to get done. So, but at this point in time, the easement offer has come through for $150,000 for a facade easement, according to Kyle. He has made the new owner aware of this easement offer on deck, and left it up to the new owner to, complete the landmarking and easement acquisition. I don't know yet who the new owner is, but I've asked Kyle to give me the name so that I could contact the new owner and try to encourage them to complete the process of landmarking and getting their facade easement. They do seem to be living there, and they haven't made any further changes in the property. It seems to be the same as it has been for a while. So that's the story for right now.
Okay, well, an interesting story and a positive one. So some things that are coming down the road may not be so positive, but that's good to hear. The historic district certified local government status.
Nothing to report at this point, but we are going to move it. I don't think we needed a work session again. I think we went through all the work sessions. The town board was supportive. And at that point, we just needed to get the town attorneys to review the legal wording and for the code amendment. And we've done that. So I think we just need to put it into a resolution to schedule a hearing and take it from there. And I'll be working on that following the new year.
Okay, I think we don't want to let what momentum had been accomplished, disappear on this. And
absolutely.
It's a long time between talks with the town board, and we do have some change in.
Well, that's
town
true.
council.
Maybe it would warrant a work session.
So,
I'll talk to the liaisons to the landmarks board and see how they want to handle that.
It's stuff is happening very fast in terms of demolitions of older buildings. At least in this neighborhood around here, we're faced with even more aggravation over it. So it's something that we should try to expedite along the way. Okay, Lafayette Cottage has been landmarked, so that's done. 680 Scuttle Hole Road has been landmarked by the town board, so that is done. 248 New Light Lane is up for a public hearing on January 11th before the town board in anticipation of a resolution to landmark that as well. So that's good to hear. One other prospective landmark in Bridgehampton has a very interesting kind of piece of history, and the house may have portions of it that date back to possibly the 1700s, but it's mostly in 1830 or 1840 or so construction. My problem is I don't think I have enough knowledge and wits to be able to do the diagnosis of what might be an older structure inside this 19th century house. And I was wondering if one of our architects would be interested in taking a visit to the house and applying their knowledge and wisdom with respect to how old certain elements of the house might be, or how one element might have been added to or incorporated into another element of the house. Are there any volunteers out there who have architectural training?
How soon do you want this done?
It's not imperative in terms of time.
Mm-hmm.
The owner generally is around on weekends, except for, I think she said in February they would be taking a vacation away from the north for a while. So it's a project that can have some flexibility in terms of scheduling the opportunity to be able to take a look at it. The house sits on Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton, and it is associated with a very prominent person in Southampton and Suffolk County history, and had been in that house or in a structure on that property since about 1830. Whether or not he built a house replacing a house would be one of the open questions of trying to diagnose that structure. So I thought it should be left to somebody more expert than myself on that. So we'll catch up maybe later on this, but just wanted to be able to find out if we can get somebody together. I haven't spoken to the parties who came forward, and in about 3 weeks or so. So I will get back to and kind of lay out the plan that we'd like to have somebody with a jeweler's eye with respect to old buildings, get a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if Susan, you have anything to add under any of the other matters. We'd understand that.
Quickly, I actually looked at it today. So the one thing, the demolition and construction list updates, I'll get those before the January meeting for that summary sheet. I do have one concern about a possible demolition coming up on Watermill, but I'll bring that up underneath the ZBA application, et cetera, applications.
Okay.
Moving on to that, it's I read 27 East, and I see there was a public hearing probably the day you were there about landmarking, about CPF acquiring 15 and 17 Old Country Road, which includes a 1900, 1910 Ball Estate caretaker's house. So I would like to request, and I don't mean referral, but to ask CPF to send us any information so maybe we could just look at to see if there's something that can be done possibly to save that house. It seems like there's a park going to be put in there. I'd mentioned that maybe last year, and a number of people in Watermill are very enthusiastic about this, and I would hate to put a damper on that. But I just think since we're the Historic District Board, we probably should consider the historic aspects of that. So if it's all right, I could contact Lisa and she could possibly send it in January sometime for us to look at.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I know that you had mentioned that particular parcel and building before as they were developing this park concept for the town of Southampton. So yes, please do, and see if you can raise at least a scintilla of concern about the loss of some historic building.
But there's also a vacant parcel in that area because of a house that blew up. There are people with means that own Ball Estate houses, so maybe there's some other there's some hope that there's something we can do. So I will take care of that.
Oh.
Going to the planning board on December 9th, there's something coming up about modifying the HERS requirements, David. I don't know if that affects the landmark, will have any effect on older structures or not. But I throw that out. We can discuss that later if there's anything that comes up.
Property was that, Susan?
It was on the 9th, the planning board had about modifying their HERS requirements. I didn't read the details thereof, but
what kind of requirements?
It's the energy efficiency requirements.
Oh, HERS, okay.
Yeah.
So you can maybe let us know the next time if you hear anything that might affect an historic structure. So there may be something, because usually when those become more stringent, it sort of backs onto the historic houses.
Yeah.
On December 16th, they discussed a draft resolution for that staff housing at the Atlantic Golf Course regarding the 6,500 square foot house. I don't know the details thereof, but it seems like that seems to be moving along. ZBA, December 2nd, there was a 116B Pond Quag. It's AYB 1940 about additions. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about there. On December 16th, 38 Far Pond, also AYB 1940, an addition. And on that one, there was somebody who was actually challenging the building inspector's decision regarding the Atlantic Golf Course staff building. My guess it may be a neighbor, I'm not sure. Okay. That's all I have.
You're muted, Ed.
Thank you. I'm trying to train myself to use the space bar to mute and unmute, like the old walkie-talkie systems. And in any case, I haven't done anything further in looking at the inspection regimen for looking at landmarks. I did do some code checking, and I see that in some codes of the towns where landmark operations take place, it's the building inspector who does the checking on the landmarks. So I just, but I don't have a systematic breakdown of all the types of approaches that have been used. But I'll see if I get a chance in January to do some work on that. Landmarks maintenance grants, nothing for nonprofits, but I did not get a chance to put out a statement declaring landmarks maintenance grant opportunities, although we did receive one without an announcement from a familiar source. But if there's no issue with it from members of the Landmarks Board, what I would do is put out an announcement and allow January 31st to be the cutoff date for applications. And then we would process them in February or March, as the case may be.
That makes sense.
Okay, without further ado, that's what we will adopt as practice for this season. Nothing to report on CPF easement arrangements. Certified local government, we have already talked about the arrangements to proceed with that. And I don't know, are there other matters that anybody wishes? There might be. Let me just say that I think we should have a short executive session just to talk about personnel issues for the Landmarks Board going forward. So if there is a motion to go into executive session.
Wait, hold on. Anything on the historic district, Bridgehampton?
We're waiting for certified local government status.
Okay, all right.
Right.
I don't know that. Why would we go into executive session? We don't really have.
We have terms. We have discussion about terms and other things for the coming year. we have term expirations, and
But those aren't really employment matters. So I don't,
well, it involves dealing with the personnel on the landmarks board.
I think it's a bit unusual for an advisory board to go into executive session.
Well, we're discussing personnel,
Whatever.
okay? So if there's a motion to do that, I'll make the motion to go into executive session.
So
We have a
are we
second.
doing that here?
Yes, we'll be doing it here, and the recording, as soon as we go into executive session, the recording can end. So is
Okay.
there a second? We have Vicky
I'll
is second.
second.
Okay, Stephanie and Vicky second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Charles, how do you do this? Do you just like